I get very excited about certain watches from certain brands, and today's such a day because a colleague of mine asked me this week, he said, "Pete, what watch are you wearing on the wrist? What are you reviewing?" And I told him it's a Hanhart 417 Ti. And he goes, "What's a Hanhart?" And I said, "Are you serious?" He goes, "Yeah, what's a Hanhart?" This guy's got $500,000 in watches, full Rolex collection, full Seiko collection. He's got JLCs, Cartiers, you name it. And he didn't know what a Hanhart was. And I said to him, "Mate, let me explain. Do you know Steve McQueen?" He goes, "Yeah, absolutely." Well, Steve McQueen was sponsored by Rolex and Tag Heuer. He used to wear those watches for movies, in adverts, what have you. But as soon as the cameras turned off, he put one of these on. This was his personal watch. It was a Hanhart. And if it was good enough for Steve McQueen back in the day, mate, it's good enough for me. So without further ado, let's flip the camera. Let's check these things out. I love watches like every other guy. It's probably the reason you're watching this video, because you love watches. Well, hopefully anyway. If you've stumbled on this video, get into watches. They're really cool, old school. But whatever the case, Hanhart is a long-standing historical brand and they've always been known for reliable instrument watches. It's exactly what I've got here. And this colorway is not a new thing to Hanhart. In fact, in 2012, Hanhart released the Primus Desert Pilot, a futuristic looking design in 44mm with impressive functionality and legibility, and it was especially designed for pilots. Now first and foremost, I love the layout of this watch, the dial. You see you've got a classic bi-compax layout, a running second subdial at the 9 as well as a 30-minute counter at the 3, and you've got a beautiful central sweeping chronograph, which in itself is also loomed, and that's a very nice touch. Another little touch or detail that Hanhart does with their watches is the second hand or even the sweeping chronograph. They're bent. They're slightly bent at the tip and it helps avoid parallax errors. It makes for a much more easy, legible reading experience, and that's one thing that I have a lot of admiration for when a brand produces reliable instrument watches. Instrument being the key word. Now alongside that historic Hanhart logo, this is basically as close as you'll get to the original design layout that Steve McQueen wore back in the day. However, these two watches are in a fresh Desert Pilot sand colours. Now these two 417s are the exact same colourway, and I've got to tell you, when it comes to legibility and functionality, they're second to none. These are exceptional. Now I'm not trying to sell you these watches, I'm not trying to sell you any watch. I've got a great job. What I do, I ring up brands contact me, I can get a watch in here, I love to live with it for a week or two before I maybe send it back. I love what I do. I've got the best job. I'm a professional photographer and I get to review watches and I love watches. So for me, I'm just going to tell you what I experienced from this watch, from this brand. I do love the brand, I do have a bias. I've always loved Steve McQueen and the association, so that might hinder me a little bit, but I'm going to tell you face value, these are really good. These are exceptional for the money. There's probably two factors that I didn't like about this watch that I'll call gripes or room for improvement. Not one of them has been a deal breaker, and that's why I'm excited about this watch. Even though these are different sized watches, they've been surprisingly wearable on my wrist in both cases. One of them is a 39mm, the other one's a 42. You'll notice the lug-to-lug comparison between 45.5 or 49. They've both been fine on my wrist. Both watches offer a 6.9mm signed push-pull crown. The watches offer 100 meters of water resistance, and the total weight on the 39mm is 82 grams, and correspondingly the 42mm comes in at 90. Now on my wrist, these watches have been a delight. As you can see here, I'm sporting the 39mm. It's been comfortable, wearable, there's no overhang. Legibility's been great, and even that case height at 13.7 for a flyback chronograph has been extremely easy to get along with. And Hanhart using a rubber textile strap with a tungsten signed tang buckle, I think they've done very well here because the comfort has been supreme. Now if I compare both watches on my wrist, the 42 and the 39, you can see the differences. Again, there's still no overhang on that 42mm with a lug-to-lug of 49mm. They both wear really well on the wrist. Again, they offer the same exact height of 13.7. And for me personally, I've had no issues with either watch. In fact, if these were my watches, I'd be happy to wear the 39mm or the 42 all day long. They've both been great. Now if I turn the watch over, you'll notice there's an exhibition caseback. And hiding behind that caseback is a Swiss Solida AMT 5100. It's a top grade column wheel flyback chronograph, and they are both extremely well regulated. And when I say extremely well regulated, both of these watches have been running at +1 second per day. In fact, the 42mm has been +1, sometimes +2. That shows attention to detail and care. I believe these movements are regulated in 6 positions, and I've got to tell you, in real life, it shows. They're very accurate. And accompanied with that 58 hours of power reserve, I've had the 39mm on my wrist a couple of days, take it off, wear the 42 for maybe 2 or 3 days, take that off, wear the 39mm. I've not had to adjust the time. I've had to wind them, like I pick up the 39 after a couple of days, I've had to rewind it, but it hasn't stopped working. And the time has been accurate, and that's been pretty cool. Now turning my attention to that bezel, it's a fluted titanium bezel, it's a friction fit bezel, and with that classic red marking that's symbolic of Hanhart's past history, it really adds a flair of not only historical significance, but a lot of charm that you just don't find in today's modern watches. And the movement of those bezels is smooth, being a friction fit, obviously left or right, there's no ratcheting. And in my experience with both these watches, where I've set that bezel, it stayed, it has not moved. So again, in that department, I think they've done very well. Now, I especially like what they've done with the crystal of these watches, because they've used a convex, highly domed sapphire crystal on both, with anti-reflective coating on the underside. And I've really only got 2 words for these crystals: great job. In its execution, both in functionality and in form. In other words, the crystals look great, but the area of functionality and legibility, they've been second to none. Brilliant. Now when it comes to chronographs, we don't really expect them to be super lume monsters and so forth. We expect that from a dive watch, but these watches do offer super luminova. The handset, the seconds hand, as well as the Arabics. Turning off the lights, you can see that that handset and that central sweeping seconds hand from the chronograph are very bright. And within minutes of being in a dark environment, the Arabics, they simply disappear. Now for me, when I wake up in the morning at 5 o'clock, I've picked up this watch, I've looked at it, I can tell the time straight off the bat. That handset is still glowing, still pointing the way, so I've had no complaints regarding reading the time, albeit it would have been nice if the Arabics were long lasting, but then again, it is a chronograph, I didn't expect it to be in dive watch lume territory. Now lastly, before I get onto any gripes or room for improvement, the price of this watch is 4,750 Australian dollars. And I think with the movement offer, the fact that it's grade 5 titanium, historical brand, I think is more than on par. Now I did say that I've got a gripes and room for improvement section. I did say that I've also got 2 gripes. I've actually got 3, and I'm going to share the third one. The first one for me is those keepers on that strap. Experiencing this watch for the last couple of weeks and wearing it, I found that the tongue of the watch actually slipped out of the last keeper because it's a little bit too loose, a little bit too big. Maybe they could have been a little bit tighter, firmer, smaller, I don't know, but in both the watches I found that the actual strap did pop out of the end keeper, and I found that the tongue was sticking out. Not a deal breaker, you can swap out straps and what have you, but that's an area which I think could offer room for improvement. It's one of those things where I found myself putting that second keeper lower and tighter on the strap just to keep it in place. Secondly for me is those loomed Arabics. I did not expect dive watch territory. Maybe they didn't need to keep them loomed at all, because that handset is exceptional, because as I mentioned, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning when I get up and I look at the watch, I can read the time like that. Simple. So legibility is great on the loom during the night. Legibility is exceptional during the day because that dial layout is absolutely bang on. And lastly for me, I'll put this in the gripe section. Unfortunately, there's only 200 of these watches. There's only 200 of these watches. So they're a limited edition. I must say it's a proper limited edition, because when you get watches like my Seiko, it's 1100 or 1700 watches. It's not really limited. You can still see them floating around. But when you get watches that are, 100 watches or 200 watches, that's a pretty limited run. And unfortunately, when these are gone, they're gone. And you know what happens when a watch gets sold out like that and you did want one. If you source one, you'll probably pay a premium on the secondary market. So for me, that's a bit of a gripe and a negative. I would have loved this to be just a standard run. Just keep it going. But that's just me. And probably the last and fourth drawback for me, I have to send both these watches back. I want to thank Peter for Define for actually sending them down for review. Thank you for loaning them to the channel. They've been great. They've been really good. If I was in the market for a watch like this, I tell you what, it's a no-brainer. They've been very easy to bond with. And honestly, if you're looking for a well-made functional watch from a historically significant brand, this is, as I said, an absolute no-brainer. I didn't expect anything less from Hanhart, with their reputation, a brand based in the Black Forest in Germany with its roots spanning back to 1882. These watches are a testament not only to quality and care, but also love, by keeping a dream alive in a world that of recent times seems to have conditioned us to accept products from an automated throwaway consumable perspective rather than long-lasting legacy pieces. And whenever I'm given a choice, I always pick the latter. So I hope you enjoyed that, my take on these brand new releases from Hanhart. Extremely easy to get along with, very hard to send back to Define watches because of that reason, but whatever the case, the journey continues, and I was happy to get hands-on with both of these nonetheless. So be well, continue to enjoy this hobby, continue to do your research and due diligence when sourcing watches, and we'll see you in the next one.